As you said, I'm Lieutenant Arnold with the University of Alabama Police Department. I've been with the police department here at UA since 1998. I'm currently assigned as the Day Watch Patrol Commander. Normally I'm in uniform. A couple things. I'm a firearms instructor. I'm a Glock armor. I'm a 870 armor. There's not too much in our department that I have not done. What we're going to try to talk about today is active shooters. We're going to define what an active shooter is. We're going to talk about historical events, but we're just going to glance over those real quick. What to do, more importantly, and law enforcement response. One thing I want to make clear from the beginning, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, freak anybody out. None of this is designed to do that, but we're talking about real life and death issues. And with your position in the classroom, you're already going to be looked at by the people in that classroom as a formal leader. Now, from a UAPD standpoint, we don't expect you to, be heroic or anything else along those lines, but be aware of the simple fact that you're going to have people that if something starts to happen, the first person they're going to look at for guidance is you. Okay? It's just something to keep in mind. That's just the reality of things. All right, one of the things we want to make sure that when we talk about active shooter situations is to maintain options. The best options you can go through is the best options to take. One of the things we talk about is, first let me give one disclaimer. I will refer to the media several times. It's not in a disparaging manner, but there are ways that they operate, and there's reasons why for that, all right? Now, one of the terms, what is the term everybody expects when they hear of an active shooter situation? What should you do in an active shooter situation from an institutional standpoint? Lockdown, right, okay? Now, lockdown defined is basically you lock all the doors, nobody comes in, nobody goes out, all right? Is that necessarily the best course of action in any given situation? No, what does it do? It limits your options, okay? Now, I'm not saying that UA will never go on a lockdown type situation, like a general lockdown campus, but we'll go into defining that a little bit beforehand. How many entrances, without looking, how many entrances are there to this room?
4.
A bunch, right? Okay. How many of y'all are in the habit of when you go into a movie theater, check and see where the exits are? How many usually are there now in most theaters? 2, maybe 3. Okay, there's usually the 2 that you come in, and there's usually one exit out up by the screen, right? If you will start doing these things, start paying attention to these things, it can save your life one day. Reason being is because we don't want you to be in a situation to have to start figuring out what to do if bullets start flying. Y'all are all going to be in academic areas. All right, for most of y'all, will be in academic areas. Figure out and know those areas and what needs to be done in those areas because, again, you don't want to have to make life or death split-second decisions if you don't have to. Now, I'm an Army brat and I'm from South Alabama, and there's a difference between an active shooter and a killing, okay? So we're going to define what an active shooter is, and what we utilize is the Department of Homeland Security definition of what an active shooter is. Last night, there was an incident. Anybody heard about the incident in Philadelphia last night? What do they keep calling it? Active shooter. It was not an active shooter. It was an arrest warrant gone bad, okay? So, the Department of Homeland Security. Active shooter is a situation where an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Why do you always hear the term active shooter when it's not an active shooter? Provokes emotional response. Very good. All right, that's why they use it. Now, if somebody walks in and goes in and says, gets fired, comes in the next day, kills their supervisors, is that an active shooter? No. Okay. So when we're talking about active shooters, now can that turn into an active shooter if they decide, well, I've already killed 2, let's go down the hall and finish it up? Now you've got an active shooter, okay? Just make sure we're defining our terms here. All right, some of the myths. What does an active shooter look like? How do they act? In most cases, active shooters do not give any kind of real hardcore indication that they're doing what they're planning on doing. It's kind of like with serial killers. If you see the media, who's one of the first people they always talk to if they find a serial killer? The next door neighbors. What does the neighbor say? He was such a nice boy. Right? He helped me carry my groceries in. Right? So, don't always look for obvious indicators. What does a rapist look like? What does a robber look like? Okay? Now, sometimes there have been situations where people that became active shooters did give indications. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But don't always rely on that. Another myth is that it won't happen here. You reckon the ladies up at the credit union a couple years back figured they were literally a block and a half from a police department, thought they'd ever get robbed and held hostage? Okay? Don't think for a second it won't or can't. We hope it won't. We're doing everything we can to prevent that it will. But don't lull yourself into thinking, well, it won't happen here. Okay? Police will always respond in time. All right? Fortunately, here at the University of Alabama, we have 4 major agencies within 6 miles of where we're standing right now. Our average response time to what we call a hot call or a priority 1 call is 38 seconds. All right? Now, that 38 seconds means when we pull up out front. If you're in a room, say this room, and somebody's in this room shooting, that 38 seconds is going to feel like a really long time. Okay, so we'll talk about some stuff to do to help take care of yourself. And most believe that they can do nothing. Most people believe they can do nothing against an armed shooter. All right. As far as I know, there's only 2 weapons in here: myself and Sergeant Matt Wilsey. Yeah, I called you out. If there's any others, don't want to know. Okay. But you can do plenty against an armed intruder. Okay. So don't ever think, well, he's got a gun. What am I going to do? And we'll talk about that briefly here in just a second. Some of these historical events, these are all historical. One of the things, another caveat that we have is we do not use their names. They have forfeited their right to be empowered by having a name. We will talk about the incidents, though. All right? Any particular, I will say this, depending on what study you're looking at, between 83 and 87% of active shooters are male, but there are female active shooters. So, just a summary of some parts. You know, the Pulse nightclub lasted for 10 minutes. Columbine, that's kind of a misnomer. 7.5 minutes was the time they were actually in the library. Norris Hall at Virginia Tech. The Aurora, Colorado Theater. Mandalay Bay was only 10 minutes. You can see one of the other things we talk about on some of these is one people often ask, hey, why can't we just pull the fire alarm? Well, what usually is near a pull station? A little map of what? Where you're supposed to go out. Guess who else can see that? Bad guys. All right, this has happened before. One time in Jonesboro, Arkansas, they had a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. Sent the 11-year-old in, pulled the fire alarm. 13-year-old's up in the woods with Daddy's rifle. Why? Because they knew where they were coming out. Okay, just things to think about. Now, this is created by the New York Police Department, and this is the updated current one. It has every active shooter incident in it since 1966 up through 2016. If you wish to go and look it up, it's available to anybody online, but it's just a little resource. If you're looking for really in-depth, fun reading, then you're going to get 2, maybe 3 paragraphs. But this has every single one of them in it if you're interested. All right, how to respond to an active shooter. 3 things: run, hide, fight. All right, first one being intelligent escape. What do we mean by intelligent escape? Basic thing. We hear bang, bang, bang out there. Which way do we go? That way, right? If you're in the 15th floor of a building, is the window an option? It's an option. It's not a real good one, but it's an option. I wouldn't take it. So, if you can't make an intelligent escape, if there's no way that you feel, if you're on the 2nd floor of somewhere and you hear shooting downstairs and you don't feel comfortable going out a window, you may have to barricade in place. All right? And ultimately, worst case scenario, you've got to fight back. Now, run. This is by far the best option. If you can get out of the area, get. All right? If you can make an intelligent escape, go. One of the things we had several years ago, we had a situation where we had a bomb threat and some active shooter threats on campus, Tutwiler specifically. This is probably about 7 or 8 years ago. One of the things that you couldn't call UAPD for about 12 hours because we were inundated with calls. And it was parents mostly. And one of the first questions they asked was, what? Are y'all on lockdown? Okay. We don't like the term lockdown. Why? It limits your options. All right. I'm a parent. I have children. If there's a bomb threat for campus, the last place in the world I want my kids to be is on campus. Okay. Ideally, if you can get out, get out. If you can make an intelligent escape, make an intelligent escape. When you leave, the only thing you need to worry about is maybe your phone. That's it. Don't worry about anything else. The rest of it's property and stuff. If you leave and forget my purse, do you go back for it? Okay, you can get that stuff later. If you forget your phone, you don't go back for it. Get out. Okay? So, by far, running is the best. And this is just an illustration. You know, if we have an active shooter at the stadium, is it a good idea to go on lockdown at the Ferguson Center? Or better yet, go to that beautiful place known as elsewhere. Right? Okay. So, hide. Is this a good room to barricade in? Why not? Well, it's designed to be open, right? So this is probably not the best place where we could barricade. So, a lot of times y'all are going to be in academic buildings that actually have areas that are relatively secure. That might be, you might want to treat it as the Alamo or whatever you want to think. That in a active shooter situation or something bad happening, this is where we all go. Okay? Ideally, you want to be something like this. That's ideal. Is it practical? No. Okay? What about this one? That's a good barricade, right? Is it practical? All right. What about this one? Yes and no. It's all glass, the doors open out. But could this slow an attacker while you're making an intelligent escape out the back door? Okay? Something's better than nothing. All right? This is pretty good, but they're not really in the position to deal with an attacker if they get in. It must have something to do with the Auburn hat. Okay? I don't know if Judy over there on the right side is just a bad individual, but maybe they just don't like her. So, but they have created some issues for somebody trying to get into a room. One of the things is, a lot of times you will not have access to the locks in your academic rooms. If you do, that's wonderful. But one of the things you can do is make sure that you know how to make the knobs malfunction. And that's what they've done here. They've piled up a bunch of chairs to make it so the knob doesn't work. All right? Typically, they're looking for easy targets. Men, you can wrap belts around. Ladies, sometimes y'all have purse straps. Men, we have ties. I'm not sure what's on dude's lip, but he's made the call to hold the door for everybody else. All right? So, that skipped a little bit more than I was wanting to, but if you notice on these types of doors, you can wrap something around it that will actually keep the arms from opening. Okay? You usually have those somewhere around. You can jam those in. More things. Ideally, you don't want them to be able to see you or hear you. They're typically looking for easy targets. So, if you can get something over the door, fine. Make sure the door is locked. This is good and bad, good heavy door, but what do you see up top? Windows open, right? One of the things we talk about is make sure you turn your phones to silent, not vibrate. Why? Right? Everybody's going to be able to hear it everywhere. Now, if you have my luck, this is about the time the dude's walking by will be when somebody in my room goes, right? So, these are a lot of things in the classroom. You can secure that door. You can pile up those chairs. You got knickknacks on the top that you can throw at him. Now, worst case scenario, fight. All right? I've got a family. Y'all have families. I'm going home to see my family. All right? I didn't create this situation. He did. All right? And when you fight, I expect you to fight. I don't want you to survive in active shooter situations, okay? Situation, pardon me. All right? I want you to win. Okay? Words have meaning. I don't want you to survive. I want you to win. All right? So if you have to fight, fight with every bit of aggression you have, because it determines whether or not you go home. All right? 10 minutes? Cool. I'm doing better than I thought. Be aggressive. Bad guys aren't always that skilled. Okay? Sometimes they are. But most of the time, they're not expecting to get resistance. One of the people that was involved, her name is Christina Anderson, that was involved in the Virginia Tech situation. He came into her room 3 times. And one of the things she kept thinking was, why is nobody doing anything? Because what did they do? They hid underneath their desks and allowed him to walk up and down the aisles very slowly. Okay? Nobody did anything. That's one of the things that she kept thinking at the time. She was the most seriously wounded to have lived. All right, she was shot twice in the back, once in the leg. Now, what do y'all see? Human nature goes certain ways. One of the things you see, every day at class change, what do y'all see on the corner? Everybody, all the students gathered up, right? What usually happens? You got that one that kind of sneaks on out there just a little bit, and you have another one right behind them. Then what happens? Then everybody go, right? A lot of times people are just waiting for that one catalyst. You may want to think of whether or not you're capable of being that person. But again, I have a family, I have kids. I'm going home to see my kids. And I ain't going out like a sheep, okay? So if it's worst case scenario, I expect you to fight with everything that you have, because that's all you've got, okay? So, control. One of the things we do get asked is, what if you subdue the attacker and there's a gun there? What do we do with the gun? Whatever you do, please don't pick it up. Reason being is because, guess what? That's going to be the moment that the cops come in the door. And everybody's adrenaline's going, and, okay, if you don't need to pick it up, don't. Now, funny story, I'll tell you one quick funny story. We do this program up at the RISE Center for the RISE program. And in the front row was this little bitty, just sweet old lady, right? We asked the question, what do you do with the gun? Her response was, pick that MFer up and shoot him right in the head. Now, don't get me wrong, that's the type of woman I want watching my kids. Okay? But, and I don't think a jury in the state of Alabama would convict you necessarily. However, what we tell everybody is, if they're no longer an active threat, it stops. Okay? If they're an active threat, no rules. If they end up dying as a result of having to put them down, so what? Okay? But once they're no longer an active threat, it stops. Don't open yourself up to be judged. All right, when safe, call 348-5454. Don't dial 911 on your cell phone. Reason being is because the default setting on all the towers in town, when you dial 911, is what? TPD. All right, now they'll get their people en route, but it creates a lag time. So what we ask is that y'all program in 205-348-5454 into your phones as one of your fast dials. Now, if you're on a landline, doesn't matter. 911 goes straight to our office. It's just the default setting on all the towers is TPD, and it just creates a lag time. Tell the dispatcher what you know, not what you heard or your third person or whatever else, okay? Tell them what you know. If you don't know anything other than you heard bang, bang, bang in another building, okay? But if you see, hey, I saw a white dude wearing all black with a long gun, yeah, we need to know that information. Once you get to that information, hang up. Why? Allows the next person, because at that moment we need as much information as we can get. All right? You see me, when we get there, you're going to see a whole bunch of different uniforms. All right? I'm wearing this right now. Normally I'm in uniform. One day with the bank robbery, we had a situation where we had guys in training. So guys were showing up in sweats and T-shirts and everything else. All right? When you come out, keep your hands up. It's best if you don't have anything in your hands. Reason being is if you have something black in your hand like a phone, the officer may not realize what it is. If they tell you to do something, do it. It's kind of like a traffic ticket on the side of the road. It's not the place to argue about it. All right, that's what court's for. But, all right, so ladies, men, we usually wear stuff with pockets. Ladies, if you have on stuff that doesn't have pockets and you have your phone, like a buddy of mine's wife says, put it in the bank, okay? Just get it out your hands and go. Follow the commands. Initially, we're not there to deal with wounded. We're there to stop the threat. All right? We're going to show a video, hopefully, if I can make it work. And we should be wrapping up.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like action than action. The authorities are working hard to protect you Your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do it. Always try to escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to be with you, but don't let them slow you down with the decision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be the #1 priority. Once you're out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to be quiet and calm. As an ambassador, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm. And commit to taking the leader down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Just one question. What would y'all have done to the lady in the break room? We're going to have time for questions? Or? Yeah, by all means. Does anybody have any questions?
Question for Lieutenant Arnold. Yes.
So around campus, I've seen these bleeding control kits posted on the walls. What's in those? What are those?
The which ones?
Around campus, I've seen bleeding control kits
Yeah.
posted on the walls. What are those and what are in them?
Usual first aid type stuff. They also, I believe, they have some coagulant in them to help the blood stop flowing and things of that nature. Best thing we can have is, hopefully those are in there as well. I'm not sure if they got that in there, is a tourniquet. Tourniquet's the best thing you do if you're wounded in any of your extremities. Well, there's several things you can do with that one. You see at the top, get something strapped around that, like a belt or a tie or something, anything you can to get around that. Because if you do that, then it won't allow the arms of it to open. They won't be able to get into that area. So, if anybody has any requests for this program, there's a bit more in-depth one that we offer. Just contact UAPD and we'll be more than happy to come out and do the program for y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.